God. They are one, but they are eternally two. This is the kind of thing that drives Western logicians crazy. Like, how can you have something that's one and two at the same time? But this is the potency of the Lord. So Krishna wants to enjoy. That's Krishna's raison d'etre. That's what he's for. Like, a lot of times we think God is there to take care of us, just like a child thinks the parents exist to take care of me. And as you grow up, you realize, oh, that's not their only thing they have going on, right? So God exists in order, he desires to experience pleasure. So he expands himself in order to have relationships. And the expansion of Srimati Radharani is his Ladini potency, or his pleasure potency. So his relationship, this relationship between Radha and Krishna, is the highest exchange of love. It's said that Srimati Radharani is the heart of bhakti. And just as Lord Balaram exists to supply Krishna's paraphernalia, everything that we use in Krishna's service, the fans, the temple, the arti paraphernalia, all of this is a manifestation of Lord Balaram. Well, just as he exists to perform this service, Srimati Radharani exists to provide pleasure to Krishna. And as I said, this relationship is not, so extensively described or taught about, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brought this knowledge to us. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna in the mood of Radha. Because Krishna, when he exchanges love with Radha, he feels this wonderful pleasure, right? Pleasure that we can't imagine. But she feels even more pleasure than he does, all right? So he wants to understand, what is this that Radha has? How do I understand that she's experiencing even more pleasure than I am? So he comes in the mood of Radharani as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so that he can understand what Radha experiences and who Radha is. Now, before I go any farther, I'm just going to have a little disclaimer. Spiritual knowledge is sometimes difficult to understand. All right? In the West, ever since the Protestant movement came about, we've kind of had this idea that we can find spiritual knowledge for ourselves. We just need to read the texts, we'll, meditate, we'll be enlightened, and this is something we can figure out for ourselves, right? We can directly connect with God. But in our tradition, we understand that that's not actually the case. This is not easy stuff. Nobody thinks, oh, I'm just going to read Gray's Anatomy and then I'll be a doctor, right? Or I'm going to read the California Code of Civil Procedure and I'll start practicing law, right? We understand that someone who already knows this material needs to help us understand it, right? So it's the same in spiritual life, that we have to have a guide, a spiritual teacher, to help us understand these texts. And that's one of the reasons why we're so blessed to be in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers, who've all commented extensively on these texts. And to have had Srila Prabhupada bring these texts to the West and not only translate them into English, but synthesize all of these various commentaries so that when we read Srimad Bhagavatam, we have these spiritual teachers, Prabhupada and all the previous acharyas are there speaking to us so that we can understand this knowledge. So this intimate relationship between Radha and Krishna is the hardest to understand. And I'm not here today to tell you that I understand it, because I don't, but I've been asked to speak a little bit, so I will share what I have heard. And one of the things that I have heard from senior devotees is that Radha and Krishna's relationship highlights the difference between material and spiritual consciousness. So Radha and Krishna are not married, right? They meet in secret at night in the forest. So on a material level, this is abominable activity, right? When we approach relationships with the idea that we're going to enjoy our senses, that we're going to please ourselves, then this kind of activity is not bona fide. But because Radha is there simply to serve Krishna, she has no material desire. And because they are exchanging pure love, because it's on a spiritual platform, then this thing that was so degraded is actually the highest. You know, it's said that the material world is the perverted reflection of the spiritual world, right? So we see that here, that the most intimate, most loving, highest relationship has to be understood in that way. If we try to understand it on a material level, we're going to be very misled. So that's the disclaimer. Srimati Radharani has 25 qualities, but I just want to talk about 2 of them tonight. And I'm trying to keep track of time because I know we're running late. So the 2 that I wanted to talk about is that she is the most compassionate and that she is the best devotee of Krishna. All right. So Radharani is also known as Jaganmata, the mother of the entire world. Okay? And just like a mother, she loves every one of her children intensely. Right? A lot of times we think, oh, Krishna, it's said, Krishna's my mother, Krishna's my father, Krishna's my greatest treasure. So we think of, we are children of Krishna. But Radha is, the manifestation of the divine feminine. She's also Krishna. And we can understand that we are her children. So what's the difference, you might ask, okay? Worship Krishna, worship Radha, no big deal. But the truth is, we're not qualified to worship Krishna, right? This knowledge was hidden for a long time. This bhakti yoga, access to the divine, was hidden because people weren't qualified. You have to be in the mode of goodness at least to practice Krishna consciousness, to approach Krishna. So, I know I don't qualify. I have never qualified. I didn't even qualify to walk into the temple, but somehow devotees let me in. So how is that? Well, it's by the mercy of Srimati Radharani. Because even more than wanting to serve Krishna, she likes to engage others in serving Krishna. It's described in the Venu Gita how when Krishna goes out into the forest every day, Srimati Radharani is missing him, like this separation, this longing, intense spiritual longing that she has for Krishna. And when he comes back with the calves in the evening, she sees him, and she just has this moment of bliss and relief from this spiritual longing. She sees her beloved. And then he goes into Nanda's castle. And again, she's, bereft. Her eyes, they can't see Krishna anymore. So Lalita has to remind her before she loses her consciousness. Lalita has to remind her, you've cooked for Krishna, you've made sweets for Krishna, so you can think about Krishna and have these sweets delivered to him. But Radharani doesn't go and take the sweets to him herself. She sends Tulsi, she sends one of her gopis to bring the sweets. And then when Tulsi comes back, she asks, what did Krishna say? What did he look like? Which one did he like the best? And then she takes the remnants of those sweets in her meal. So that's the mercy of Radharani, is as much as she wants to exchange love with Krishna, she wants to engage us even more. So if you want Krishna, then you must approach Radha. If you please Radha, then you can have Krishna. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, just as you cannot separate heat and light from fire, you cannot separate Radha from Krishna. So if we want to advance in spiritual consciousness, we need to take shelter of Srimati Radharani. And our practice is such that we automatically, we begin by doing this. The Maha Mantra, the first word is Hare, which is calling her, oh Hare, oh Hare. Hare is Radha, the internal pleasure potency of Krishna. So we start by asking Srimati Radharani, please engage me in Krishna's service. And I was thinking today, when all the devotees were here, decorating, making the flower outfit, cooking, and I was thinking, look how Srimati Radharani is engaging everyone in Krishna service. It's a little stressful, people are getting a little fried, the hot glue isn't cooperating, but that's part of the exchange of love. So there's one story that kind of describes Srimati Radharani's mercy. Keep in mind that Lakshmi Devi wants to participate in the Vrindavan pastimes with Krishna. She wants, let me come with these gopis, let me see. But she can't because she's a queen, right? So there's a little bit of reserve in her. Certain activities are beneath her, right? So having that mood, she can't enter Vrindavan. She can't participate in these pastimes. But one time Arjuna spoke to Krishna and said, I want to understand this love that the gopis have for you. And Krishna said, you can't. You can't understand this. So if Arjuna can't understand it, we obviously are not going to understand it. But Krishna says, look, you go to Parvati, who is an expansion of Radha, you go to Parvati and she'll help you. So Arjuna went to Mother Parvati and said, I want to understand this love that the gopis have for Krishna. And she said, take your bath in this lake and purify yourself, which he did. And a gopi came and said, come with me. And she took him to Vrindavan. And she brought him to another lake in Vrindavan and said, take your bath. And he did. And he became transformed into a gopi, Arjunia. But he didn't remember his past. So the gopis bring him to Srimati Radharani. And they're asking, who are you? You're a new gopi. Who are you? And he says, I don't know. I don't remember anything. I just know I'm a gopi. And so Radharani engages him in serving Krishna. And he experiences this bliss and understands this, and then, takes his bath again and is transformed back into Arjuna, but he can remember. So something that even Lakshmi Devi can't acquire, through the mercy of Srimati Radharani, that is available. Srimati Radharani is the topmost devotee of Krishna. She is the best servant, because her service is in complete surrender. Okay, so one of the meanings, one of the ways in which we understand this relationship between Radha and Krishna, the unmarried paramours, is that Radha is completely surrendered. In other words, when you're married, you have some rights, you have, the husband has some duties, you're thinking, okay, well, I expect a home, I expect food on the table, I expect protection from dacoits, whatever. There's some reciprocation that's built into the relationship from both sides. But Srimati Radharani doesn't have any of this. The gopis don't have any of this. This is a relationship of spontaneous love and surrender. So there's so many examples of how the gopis serve Krishna in this most surrendered, I can't think of the word, in a way where they are expecting nothing back. And one of the nicest stories is about Krishna's headache, right? So Krishna had a headache, and nothing could fix it. Nothing could fix it. So Narada Muni says, Krishna says, what will cure this is some dust from the feet of my devotees. So Narada Muni is trying to collect this dust. And he's asking various devotees, even the residents of Vrindavan, please give me the dust of your feet so that we can cure Krishna's headache. And no one will do it, because it's very offensive to put the dust of your feet on any senior person's head, what to speak of the Lord himself. You go to hell for such activity, right? But the gopis didn't even hesitate. Of course, yes, you need dust from our feet? Here, take it. And so they're asked, aren't you afraid of going to hell? And they say, we don't care. We just want Krishna's headache to be cured. Right? So no matter what the consequence, they want to serve the Lord. They want His pleasure. They want whatever He desires. That's an amazingly high standard of devotion, but that's the opportunity that we're given. Sometimes we think, well, that's what's demanded of us and it's too much, I can't do it. But it's not that Krishna is demanding surrender everything to me. He's inviting us to surrender everything to Him. And if we serve Srimati Radharani and we serve Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya, they will help us to get to that platform where we can surrender everything. So in the rasa dance, and again, we're cautious about the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So one of the very nice ways to appreciate the rasa dance is to read about it in the Krishna book, because Srila Prabhupada summarizes it very nicely for us in a way that we can understand. But when we think about the rasa dance, there are a couple of points that come out. First is that Krishna plays his flute for the gopis, right? And the sound of that flute, Krishna's love for the gopis goes out through the flute into their ears, and it blocks their consciousness so that all they can think of is Krishna. They leave their homes, they leave their families, they're not thinking about any consequences. It's that complete surrender. So they go out to see Krishna, because he's calling them, and without regard to their reputations or their families, they go out, and what does Krishna say? He says, go home. You shouldn't be here, go home. And they're saying, wait, we rushed out to see you because you called us. We didn't think about our responsibilities. All we want is to be with you, and you're telling us to go away. And then they're dancing with him, and he disappears, right? He just takes off, leaves them crying, right? And when they look for him, they see Radha and Krishna's footprints. Oh, okay, Radha is the best servant of Krishna, and so, Krishna is having pastimes with her. How wonderful. But Krishna even leaves Radha. She's given up everything. She's come to be with him. They're intimately exchanging, having a loving exchange, and he leaves her too. So what is that about? Krishna's a scoundrel. Krishna abandons us. Just when we think that we've learned to love him, what is the story? So one of the lessons we pull from this is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in the Shikshashtakam, that even if you handle me roughly by your embrace, still I want to serve you. All right? So sometimes it's easy to perform devotional service, right? Some days are just better than others. I'll just give you an example of myself today. My husband has Lyme disease, and I have a client with a drunken wife who's a danger to their baby. And today's Radhastami. And so I woke up and I was like going down to the temple, I'm getting all my rounds chanted, I'm gonna, help decorate, hang out with the devotees, hear the holy names, wonderful, And all my plans get, thrown sideways because these people insist on having crises. Even my dear husband insists on having a crisis on Radhastami. What is up with that, you guys? It's Radhastami. But Krishna doesn't always make it easy for me to perform my service, right? And why is that? Because that's what I need for my spiritual growth. So Vaisheshika Prabhu told my husband and I once that when we perform our service in a time when it's very, very hard, maybe people are criticizing us, or maybe we're suffering from ill health or whatever, but for some reason the service is extra, extra hard at that particular time and place, that's when we make the most advancement. He says, by doing our service, we're actually creating a spiritual body. And when we do the service under these very difficult circumstances, we're actually building our spiritual blood. It's like the heart, the essence of that spiritual body is being created. So as hard as it is, I mean, there are times, honestly, when it's just too hard, and I say, okay, I can't do this today. I'm not going, you just have to be sick without me, I don't know. Whatever, just throw in the towel. But when I can stick with it and do the service in spite of the impediments, that's when the greatest pleasure happens also. Right? I'm sure every devotee has experienced this. When you stretch yourself, when you do something out of your comfort zone, you do the service that you just really didn't want to do, or you thought you couldn't do, and that's when you get the sweetest reciprocation from Krishna. So that's part of what the rasa dance is telling us, that even if Krishna doesn't fit in with our plans, because that's really what I'm complaining about. I had a plan for today, Krishna, and you didn't make those nice arrangements I was expecting. So even when Krishna doesn't fit in with my plan, I should serve him anyway, because it's not about my plan, and it's so easy to forget that. So the last thing that I had that I wanted to share is a poem that I wrote a while ago. And it's in this very, very nice book that just came out, and I believe Subhadra has some outside, Bhakti Blossoms. It's a collection of poetry by different Vaishnavis around the world, actually. And every time I open it, I find another gem, that just kind of blows my heart wide open. First generation, second generation, all kinds of really wonderful stuff in it, so please take a look at it. So before I read this poem, first of all, poetry is something that's inflicted on you, I think. It's not like I sit down and think, okay, I'd like to write a poem. It's like I have no choice. But the point of this poem is to show that when we meditate on Krishna's pastimes, even if we don't fully understand them, even if we're not qualified, but if we meditate on them to, the extent of our ability, Krishna reciprocates with us. So forgive me. Madana Mohan moves through the night to capture the gopis, hearts beating like drums. They steal from their homes in secretive flight to the lord of their dance. Here he comes, oh he comes. The sound of his flute floating soft through the air as they rush from their homes in complete disarray. The thought of his countenance, moonlike and fair, captures their hearts and drags them away. Proudest of women, these friends of Gopal, each feels his arms in loving embrace. Of his devotees, most blessed of all, these maidens of Vraja who dance with such grace. Yet blink but one eye, and their lover has fled. They circle alone under moonlight and cloud. They stumble and fall to the ground like the dead, with their grief-stricken voices crying aloud. O trees, have you seen that most beautiful one, whose flute calls us out from our homes in the night? Creepers, please help us. Our hearts are undone. Govinda may never return to our sight. Seeking their lover, they find in the earth the footsteps of Radhika and Nandulal. Oh, how can we measure the ultimate worth of that gopi whose worship surpasses us all? But wearing the crown made by Krishna's own hand, Radha thinks she has outdone all the rest. Alone with her lover, she has one demand. Carry me, Krishna, she sweetly requests. Climb on my shoulders, her cowherd commands, and the moon dims its light in the clouds overhead. Krishna leaves Radha alone in the sand. Radha is stunned, and her heart fills with dread. Yet in her grief she awakens to know pride in his love was the cause of her fall. The loss of dear Shyam, an irreparable blow to one who has given the most love of all. She bleakly remembers his smile, honey sweet, bimba red lips, and soft blue-black hair. The thrill of her heart when their loving eyes meet. Now the loss of Shyam's glances crowns her despair. Then like the dawn when the sun's shining rays burn as a flame through Vraja's dark night, Krishna appears in a glorious blaze, the glow of his smile, the gopis' delight. The hearts of the gopis, like high-standing hills, drown in the nectar of Krishna's sweet glance. Cool moonlit rays shine down on them still in the endlessly circling rasa dance. Step to the left, hand touching hand, each gopi ensnared by Krishna's dark eyes. Step to the right across the soft sand, with ankle bells tinkling under dark skies. Madana Mohan moves through the night to capture the gopis, hearts beating like drums. They steal from their homes in secretive flight to the lord of their dance. Here he comes, oh he comes. Thank you all for your attention, and all glories to Srimati Radharani. Hare Krishna. Do we have time for questions or comments, or should we move on?
I don't know. I think we could see if there's a few questions.
Okay.
What are the lines that are you said next to whatever?
25. Help me out. She's a youthful young girl, right? She's, I can't say them off the top of my head. Please, Dr. Zach.
Sweetness personified.
Sweetness personified. Yes.
She always keeps Krishna under her control.
She always keeps Krishna under her control. She's kind to the elderly.
Her eyes are always glancing sideways at Krishna.
Her eyes are glancing
Very
sideways.
brilliant smile.
A beautiful smile, brilliant smile. The way she dresses. Singing. She sings. She's shy. That's right. Best dancer. I haven't been counting. I don't know if we're halfway through. She is an expert cook, and she cooks for Krishna every day, and every day she makes something different.
She's always very respectful to the elders.
Yes. She's always respectful to her elders.
Thank you, Radhaji, very much for your beautiful poetry. It's uplifted us all so immensely. I'm sure it's gone straight to Krishna and Radhaji.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you for your poetry.
Okay, Haribol, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Madhuri.
My comment is, you are a wonderful speaker.
So, thank you for your encouragement. Srila Prabhupada, by his mercy and the mercy of my guru, you know, that's where it all comes from. And Srimati Radharani. Right? All right, thank you so much. Hare Krishna.